Episode 1 Shadows Beneath the Lookout Asterisk in the fall of 2015. I set off on a solo road trip to the deep woods of Northern California. My destination? An abandoned fire lookout tower I had read about on a forgotten blog post. Hidden high up in the forested hills, it was a relic from the 1940s, long since decommissioned, technically off limits, and rumored to be structurally unsafe. But for me, it was a perfect adventure. Asterisk, the hike from the road wasn't marked. Using a handheld GPS, I navigated through dense underbrush, fallen trees, and winding slopes. After nearly 5 hours of bushwhacking through increasingly wild terrain, I spotted the top of the lookout rising above the treetops like a ghostly crown. Asterisk it looked. Sturdy, weather-beaten, sure, but standing strong. Asterisk I tested the ladder. Metal, rusted, creaky, but it held. Step by step, I climbed. At the top, the forest stretched endlessly in every direction. No power lines, no highways, just unbroken wilderness. Asterisk inside the lookout, there's barely room to move. A single decaying bed, a broken desk, shattered window frames. Still, it was shelter. I rolled out my sleeping pad, made a quick meal on my portable stove, and sat outside watching the sun melt into the horizon. That's when I saw it, a faint orange glow in the woods below. It wasn't a flashlight or a campfire. It flickered oddly like a torch. It moved slowly through the trees, weaving in and out of view. I watched it for several minutes until it vanished behind a thick patch of brush. Strange. I thought there was no trail, no easy way to hike out here. Whoever that was had come through the same wilderness I had, or maybe worse. Asterisk I stayed out on the ledge a while longer, scanning the treetops for any sign of movement. Just before heading inside, I glanced down again and froze. A man stood in the clearing, still, silent, staring directly up at me. Asterisk. Hello, I called out. Asterisk, no response. Just that long, eerie stare. Then, after several seconds, he lifted a single hand like a slow wave or maybe a warning. Without a word, he turned and vanished into the trees. Asterisk, something felt wrong. But I convinced myself it was just another explorer. Asterisk, I locked the trapdoor behind me and crawled into my sleeping bag. The wind howled. The structure groaned. Asterisk. Then I heard it. Asterisk creaked. Asterisk metal against metal. The sound of someone climbing the ladder. Asterisk I froze. Creak. Creak dot 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 creak. Getting closer. Asterisk I slipped from my bag. Heart pounding. Grabbed my flashlight. Slid the trapdoor open. No one. Asterisk I stepped out onto the ledge. Looked down. The ladder was empty. Suddenly footsteps. Behind me. Fast. Asterisk a dark figure raced across the platform, just out of reach of the lantern glow. I bolted to the ladder and climbed down as fast as I could. Halfway down, I dared to look up. Asterisk he was looking down at me. A face barely visible in the darkness. I didn't stop. I ran into the woods and didn't stop until the sun rose. Episode 2, Barefoot in the Pines. Asterisk. There's a lake deep in Oregon that my father used to take me to when I was a kid. Unmarked, quiet, and perfectly isolated. In my adulthood, I returned alone one weekend, hoping for peace and a sense of nostalgia. Asterisk. The first day was serene. Clear skies, gentle ripples on the water, and the soft hum of nature. I set up my tent, made coffee, and sat by the lake until the sun dipped behind the trees. Asterisk. The second day, I walked the perimeter of the lake multiple times. It was only a few hundred yards around, so looping it was relaxing, meditative. But on my fourth lap, I noticed something different. Footprints. Not just any footprints, bare feet. Imprinted in the moist soil right at the edge of the woods, deep and fresh. And there was something wrong with the shape, longer toes, narrow, heel almost animalistic, but unmistakably human. They hadn't been there before. I scanned the area. Nothing. No rustling, no voices. Just the breeze across the lake. I tried to ignore it. That night, sitting around my campfire, I kept glancing over my shoulder. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, approaching from the trees. Two people appeared in the firelight just at the edge of visibility. A man and a woman. They didn't speak. Asterisk. Can I help you? I asked. Without a word, the woman bolted into the woods. The man just stood there, unmoving, staring. His feet were bare. Asterisk. After another moment of silence, he too turned and walked back into the darkness. Asterisk. I packed my gear in minutes. I didn't care that it was night. I wasn't going to stay. 40 minutes into the forest trail back to my car, I heard them running, then stopping. Asterisk from one side, then the other. Asterisk every 10 or 15 minutes, sprint in the dark, then silence. I don't know what their intent was, but they never touched me. I made it back, barely. Episode 3, the knock at Rainfall Hollow asterisk in it. The spring of 2019, I was living out of a camper van, traveling up the coast of Washington. I often camp deep in national forest, free, secluded, and peaceful. That week, the rain hadn't let up for days, but I didn't mind. I found a quiet pull-off surrounded by trees and parked for the night. Asterisk after cooking dinner. I cracked a window for some air and watched the show on my laptop. Asterisk suddenly light a flash across the screen. I turned around, but the light was gone. Not moving, just off. It hadn't come from the road. Behind my van was only forest. I shut the window. By 11 p.m., the rain was pounding hard. Thunder echoed in the hills. I crawled under my blanket, trying to sleep. Asterisk, then a snap. A branch breaking. A rustle, then silence. Asterisk, I sat up. My heart drumming, then a knock at the side door. Then another. A pause. Then Sheriff's Department opened the door. I didn't move. Why hadn't they announced themselves first? Asterisk, I peeked through the window shade. A dark silhouette was shifting near the door. No badge, no vehicle, no lights. Then I heard more footsteps coming fast. I made a decision. Asterisk, jumped into the driver's seat, started the engine. Asterisk, as I pulled out, two figures appeared from the forest running toward the van. I hit the gas. No other cars, no cruisers, no real cops. I reported it to the local sheriff's office. The response? Episode 4, the tunnel in the hills asterisk in the summer of 2017. I was hiking through the Angeles National Forest in Southern California. It was hot, dry, and silent, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. My plan was to explore an old overgrown roadbed that used to serve as a mining path in the 1940s, before it was swallowed by the hills. At the end of the road, according to local legend, was a tunnel that had collapsed decades ago. Asterisk, they called it the Split Vein Tunnel because miners claimed it split open the mountain like a wound. Asterisk, most people didn't bother going there. No real trail existed anymore, and parts of the terrain had suffered landslides. But I was curious. I wanted something real. The hike took me almost 4 hours through difficult terrain. Thorn bushes, sudden drops, loose dirt, but eventually I found it. Hidden behind a curtain of vines, just like in those haunted ruins you see in old movies. Asterisk, it was real. Asterisk, the tunnel was narrow, maybe 5 feet across and 7 feet high. Its mouth looked like it had been sealed at some point, but there was a large enough opening for me to slide through. I turned on my flashlight and stepped in. Asterisk, the temperature dropped almost immediately. Cold and damp. Asterisk inside. The walls were marked. Not just tools from old mining days, but recent ones. Modern graffiti. But what caught my attention were the scratches, dozens of them. All the same size. Like fingernails clawing at stone. Asterisk about 20 feet in. The air turned thick. The light behind me faded. The beam of my flashlight shook slightly in my hands as I went deeper. Then I heard it. A cough. Not an echo. A human cough. It came from further inside. I turned off my light and froze. My ears strained in the absolute blackness. Asterisk, another cough. Closer. Asterisk, then dragging. Something being pulled along the floor. Asterisk, I flicked my light back on. The tunnel ahead was empty. But there was a boot print in the mud. Fresh. One single boot. Deep and still moist. Facing toward me. I turned around and began to leave. As I got near the entrance, something brushed the back of my neck. Asterisk, I spun, heart racing. Flashlight sweeping the dark. Nothing. I didn't stop moving. I slipped back. Through the opening, back into the daylight. But something stayed with me. Asterisk as I stood outside catching my breath. I turned back toward the tunnel one last time. A face was staring out from the darkness. Half-lit, hollow-eyed. It didn't follow. But it didn't blink either. I never went back. And no one I've talked to has ever heard of the split vein tunnel.